Last week we introduced Revelation chapter 1, verse 18, and chapter 2, verses 8 through 10. With these words in 1:17 and 18, Jesus said, "Fear not, I am the first, the last, the living one. I was dead, and behold, I am alive forevermore. I have the keys of death and Hades." And then he would write to the church at Smyrna, that faithful congregation, and he would say, "I know thy tribulation, I know thy poverty, I know them that are blaspheming thee." Verse 10, "Fear not the things which thou art about to suffer. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee the crown of life." We made the point last week, we make it again this week. It is a great thing to know that the one who's writing me has suffered and overcome that suffering and will never die ever, and has the keys of death and of Hades. And he just said, "I'll give you the same keys. You may be able to live forever and never die." And he has that authority. He has that right. He has that capability. And he's just promised it unto the church at Smyrna. But there's a great deal of evidence. There's a great deal of proof. There's a great deal of comfort and support behind what he had to say. So we turn to Acts chapter 2, and we began to hear the very first full gospel sermon that was ever preached by the Apostle Peter and the rest of the apostles. And we learn at least 5 things that are evidence concerning the resurrection of Christ. But since you are not going to give me 5 hours, I will not cover all 5 of them. We'll only do 4 in 4 hours. I know y'all will enjoy that. We're looking at chapter 2, verse 22. This is approximately 50 days after Christ was crucified, buried, and resurrected. And Peter and the apostles would say unto those men who took his life, "Ye men of Israel, hear these words. Jesus of Nazareth, a man approved of God by mighty works, wonders, and signs, which God did by him in the midst of you, even as ye yourselves know." I emphasized last week how important that phraseology was. How many times do you hear of miracles happening over there where you're not? Back 1,000,000 years ago, before you came on the scene. That's not what Peter said. Peter said, these things happen and you know about them. And you're going to see why more so in just a minute. He said, "Him being delivered up by the determined counsel and foreknowledge of God, ye by the hands of lawless men did crucify and slay." Do you realize he just said they murdered the only begotten Son of God? "Whom God raised up, loosed the pains of death, because it was not possible that they should hold him." David saith concerning him. This is what we studied last week. Here is a quote from the psalmist, Psalm 16. And David is saying, "Behold, the Lord always before my face, for he is on my right hand, that I should not be moved. Therefore, my heart was glad, my tongue rejoiced, moreover, my flesh also dwelt in hope." Verse 27, "Because thou wilt not leave my soul unto Hades, neither wilt thou give thine Holy One to see corruption." That is a prediction that occurred approximately 1,000 years before the fulfillment with Jesus Christ. "Brethren, I may say unto you freely, the patriarch David, that he both died, was buried. His tomb is with us today." Why did he say that? This is our study today. The prediction was, "Thou wilt not leave my soul in death. Thou wilt not leave me in the grave. My flesh, my body is not going to remain and become corrupt." That means it's going to be the fact that he's going to come out before his flesh corrupts. And it always corrupts. It didn't with him, because he came forth on the third day, just as he promised. And we went over those prophecies. But here in this text, he would say, David is talking about an empty tomb. David says, "My tomb's going to be empty." No, he didn't. And that's Peter's point. David's tomb is with us today, which implies the tomb of the Messiah, the promised one, the Christ, the anointed one, is empty. Figure that one out. Figure that one out. Being therefore a prophet of God, knowing that God had sworn with an oath that of the fruit of his loins he would set one upon his throne, he foreseeing this spake of the resurrection of the Messiah, saying that neither was he left unto Hades, nor did his flesh see death. What Peter, by inspiration and the apostles, just said was, when David made this promise, when he made this prediction, he wasn't talking about himself. We still have his tomb, but he was talking about the Messiah. And then he could sweep a hand over that whole multitude of thousands of Jews and say, have you seen the tomb of Jesus? It's right there. It's empty. And it has been empty for 2,000 years. Turn with me to Matthew chapter 6, Mark 16, verses 1 through 8. Mark 16, 1 through 8. This is what we did last week. We took the various testimonies of the eyewitnesses, the reporter Mark, the historian Luke, and the champion of the Jews against Christians, Saul, who became a Christian, to point out that they all believed in the resurrection of Christ and they had the evidence for it. We turn to Mark chapter 16 and we read this beginning in verse 2. Early on the first day of the week, they come to the tomb when the sun was risen. And they were saying among themselves, the women were, who shall roll away the stone from the door of the tomb? And looking up, they see that the stone is rolled back. It was exceeding great. And entering into the tomb, they saw a young man sitting on the right side, arrayed in white robe. They were amazed, and he saith unto them, be not amazed, you seek Jesus. What did that term just tell you? You don't know anything else, but what did it just say when it said, you seek Jesus? It just said, he's not here. Now he says it, the Nazareth, who hath been crucified. He is risen. He is not here. Behold the place where they laid him. The tomb was empty that day. But go and tell his disciples and Peter, and goeth before you to Galilee. There shall you see him. How are you going to see him? He's dead. The angels just said he's resurrected. Did you know not one angel has spoken to one sinner concerning their salvation? Not even here. And they went out. They fled from the tomb, they were trembling and with astonishment. Thank you, Ron. Had come upon them, and they said nothing to anyone. They were afraid. So you heard the declaration. Now turn to me, John 20, one of the most powerful passages on the empty tomb that you will ever read. The empty tomb being empty then, being empty today. And that tomb will be empty until the Lord comes again, and it will be empty then even, because the Lord is resurrected. We have in John chapter 20 the same situation. However, John, the apostle, the eyewitness of the Lord, would hone in on Mary just a little bit. Sue, would you turn the air conditioner up just a little bit? I think somebody's a little cool. So you're looking at John chapter 20 and then noticing verse 1. Now, on the first day of the week cometh Mary Magdalene and early. The other ladies were with him, but John is talking about Mary. While it was yet dark under the tomb, and seeth the stone taken away from the tomb. Now, you'll take notice that whenever they came to the tomb, they left the house while it was dark. By the time they got there, it was light enough for them to see the stone was taken away. That's no contradiction. She runneth. Why run? She runneth therefore and cometh to Simon Peter and to the other disciple whom Jesus loved. Who's that? Who's the writer of the book? Who's the one that's been declared that he loved the Lord? It's John. Peter and John. She told Peter and John and the other disciples whom Jesus loved, and saith unto them, They have taken away the Lord out of the tomb. We know not where they have laid him. What did she just tell the apostles? Something she didn't know. I don't know where he is, but he's not in the tomb. It's empty. How did it get empty? She didn't tell them that. So we read on and we see verse 3, and it says, Peter therefore went forth, and the other disciple, who's that? Yes, it's John again. And they went toward the tomb. They ran both together. The other disciple, John, outran Peter, came first to the tomb, stooping and looking in. Listen closely. He seeth the linen cloths lying, yet he entered not in. It is vitally important to understand the definitions that God is using within this text. In verse 1, it says, They seeth the stone. That particular word in the original language is to look and to discern. What does that mean? He looks in and he sees the linen cloths, but they're specially made, they're specially laid. And he's looking and he says, What does that mean? That's the meaning of that word. And it says the linen cloths lying. That particular word indicates to be laid, used of things being in place, to be situated or placed, to set. And then he goes on and says it suggests that the linen cloths were lying orderly, not disturbed or skewn, and in a fixed position, but nothing more is said about it. But let me say some more about it. Have you seen the show, The Mummy? Linen cloths all wrapped up. Have you noticed that whenever he gets up, the linen cloths are all skewn everywhere all over his body? Do you know what's being said here? Have you ever seen a locust? The locust clings on to the tree. A little split comes over the top of it, and he slips right out of that locust shell. What's left? The cocoon. Right here, we've got the linen cloths lying in their folds, and Jesus out of them. There is no slit. There is no unraveling. There's just he's out. That's what John is observing. We continue on, and it says in verse 6, And Simon Peter therefore cometh, following him, entered into the tomb, and behold, the linen cloths lying. He saw the same thing. And the napkin that was upon his head, not lying with the cloths, but rolled up by itself. What you had was the mummified person, and then they would place a napkin over the face. What you see is this. Let me take the napkin off his face. Let me fold it up. And let me set it over here. Do you see that somebody's not in any hurry? Do you see that nobody's worried? Now, if you see that, you're seeing what John saw. You're seeing what Peter saw. That's not made up. John is an eyewitness. Peter is an eyewitness. And what you have is John telling you exactly what he saw. Then, in verse 8, entered in therefore the other disciple also, who came first to the tomb, and he saw and believed. That's a different word, saw, see. This word here is horono, to perceive. It denotes perception. He looks, he observes. And as he's observing, he's seeing something, and it's coming to his brain. Wait a minute. That can't be. I'm seeing something that doesn't happen naturally. And he believed. And he yet knew that the scriptures, as far as that goes, the text would tell us. And then it says in verse 10, So the disciples went away again unto their home. What were they to do? Well, as they would get together, it would be that Jesus would come unto them, as you know. And there would be 11 of them, but no Thomas. You remember that? Doubting Thomas, Didymus, the twin. And they tell Thomas, we've seen the Lord. Thomas says, I'll not believe until I put my finger in his hands and put my hand in his side. 1 week later, Jesus came unto the disciples and he said unto Thomas, Thomas. And Thomas right then said, the Lord of me, the God of me. Thomas went to India after the Lord was resurrected and preached the gospel to those in India and other places. What changed Thomas? I'm not going to believe that. He saw. John saw. Peter saw. And they reported exactly what went on. What do you think you could do if you were the rulers who just crucified the only begotten Son of God? What do you think you could do about it? I mean, the tomb is empty. Peter stands up and says, the tomb is empty. And all the Jews go to the leaders and they say, the tomb is empty. How come? What are you going to do as leaders? Do you know I know what they're going to do? Do you know why I know what they're going to do? Thanks, Rob. Matthew 28. Matthew 28. That very day, listen to me, that very day, they came up with the best excuse they could come up with. Listen. Now, while they were going, Matthew 28:11, that's the women, some of the guard, pardon me, that's the guard. Some of the guard came into the city, told unto the chief priest all the things that were come to pass. And when they were assembled with the elders and had taken counsel, they gave them much money unto the soldiers, saying, say ye, his disciples came by night and stole him away while we slept. If this comes to the governor's ears, what matter does that? What does it matter? It comes to the governor's ears. We will persuade him and rid you of care. Why would you tell the governor anything? Because these men know, and by the way, Acts chapter 7 shows it. Acts chapter 16 also shows it. They have a responsibility. And in that day and time, if you're a Roman soldier, and they were Roman soldiers, there was a Roman guard, that if your protection got away, you died. Do you realize that some of the guard did not go to the rulers? Why? I'm not going to tell them nothing. By the way, it's a double negative. I'm not going to tell them nothing. I'm a dead man. Some of them went. They gave them money. They bribed them. And they said, say this, the disciples stole the body while we slept. Oh, you were irresponsible, huh? The fact that the guard was walking around on the earth saying that proved that the tomb was empty. Not only by the fact that they were walking around, but by their own testimony. And it was self-contradictory because they were walking around. So they took the money and did as they were taught. This saying was spread abroad among the Jews and continueth unto this day, wrote Matthew. Here are some unintended consequences. The fabrication confirms the empty tomb. This was the best they could construct. The fact that the guards continued to live to tell the story disproves their account. Evidence presented to the generation in which the event happened tells the generation of that time Jesus is resurrected. And the evidence, though the atheist doesn't like it, the evidence is as good as any evidence in any court of the land. You know how I know that? His name is Greenleaf. 200 years ago, he did not believe in the resurrection. He says, I'm going to take the writings of the apostles, the New Testament, and I'm going to prove them wrong. He came back, met his good friend who was going to take the life of Paul and prove that Saul did not see Jesus. Both of them had a confession to make. I now believe. I now believe. Greenleaf wrote the book on laws and evidence to be received in court. So what you have is the writer of evidence, God, giving you the best evidence that you will ever receive: an empty tomb, empty today. Jesus is resurrected. Here's the question: what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? I know a young lady here the other day, after studying for a day or two, 6 or 12, was baptized into Christ. And she said at her baptism that she believed that Jesus is the Christ, the only begotten Son of God. I know a number of people that have done that. Brother Marshall, who was a black preacher a number of years ago, baptized over 25,000 black people out of his community. How? Because he preached the gospel of Jesus Christ.